being the last week. You need to put it into the record of supervision template and then upload it into the submission box each week. So it doesn't come to me, it doesn't get emailed to me, I don't need to sign it off, you don't need a one-to-one tutorial with me. You need to fill out the record of supervision and you need to upload it into the correct box, which you can see here on the screen. So you go to your unit code, you go to submit your assignments, then you go to click on supervision submission folder, then record of supervision, and then you download it, but it's also the same place that you upload it. Okay, so make sure that you're really clear on that. So we're going to look today at overall feedback, then we will look at specific advice for each section of the proposal. So this is collective feedback for everybody that submitted a draft last week. I'll give you some overall feedback on what I observed in everybody's work, and then I'll break down each section of the feedback into the specific areas. So the overall feedback that I noticed is that most of you had attempted your literature review, which is really good at this stage. For those of you that did not attempt your literature review, it's a really good idea to start this process as soon as possible, as the literature review forms the backbone of all of the research which will help to support the overall research, okay? So the literature review is the thing that kind of creates all of your knowledge around what you were talking about. So a lack of literature review, but then a knowledge in other areas isn't going to be very good in terms of the overall project. The literature review should be the most heavily weighted thing at the moment in your research at proposal stage, which is why it takes up so much of the word count of the overall proposal. Although some did follow the structure, there were some people that didn't follow the structure of the brief. So it's really important that you follow the structure of the brief to pass the unit. We don't want to see your full research project at this stage. We're asking to look at your proposal. It does state on the proposal brief that I'm looking at now that it needs to follow this structure. It has to follow this structure, okay? So make sure that everybody, including the titles of each of the sections, that they follow the proposal format word for word, okay? Because it's really important that we can see which areas align to where you're working. As I said before, there were loads of records of supervision and ethics forms uploaded rather than your proposals, your drafts. So please be really clear on where to upload your record of supervision and what these are for. So each week we go through what the purpose of the record of supervision is and where you upload it. So anybody who is submitting records of supervision and ethics forms to the draft proposal section hasn't been engaging in the sessions that we've had, and if there's uncertainty about what that is or what that means, that's something you really need to speak to me about, so we can go through that in the session if there's concerns over that. So there were also concerns with plagiarism and AI indications, so artificial intelligence indications. So this is something that you can see yourselves through your similarity report. So some of you have been contacted if there's a high percentage of AI indication in your work. You'll be able to see how much text is being matched with other sources through your own draft reports. It's so important to check these because we don't want your work to be going through a plagiarism process or an academic misconduct process. And the reason that we have these draft submissions is to allow you and enable you an opportunity to check where your work is matched to other texts and reference those materials correctly. Okay. In terms of AI indications, that's something that Turnitin picks it up. The people who had high percentages of this have already been contacted. So if you haven't been contacted, then as far as we can see at the moment, your draft is okay in terms of AI detection. That's where you're using things like ChatGPT or other kind of AI word generating programs to create content for you. So Turnitin can detect these through the text matching source, and it really is something that you need to be mindful of. So it's not that we don't accept the use of these things, because it's kind of inevitable that they will be used, but it's about how you use them in your work. If you are using AI tools to help generate your work, you need to reference that as well as you would reference anyone else's work. Okay, so you need to make sure where you have taken it from an artificial intelligence sort of program that creates content for you. All of those things need to be referenced, and then they'll be taken into account like any other referencing. So if 90% of your work has been generated by an AI tool, then we would comment that far too much of it has been referenced from other sources and there's not enough of your analysis in there. It's okay, as I said, it's okay that you're using it, but it's about how you use it and how you're referencing it. And it shouldn't be a large percentage of your content. It should be used as any other referenced tool would be used, as any other book or journal. So make sure that you're using your drafts to check your text matching in your similarity report. And from the brief it says, making sure that your research is focused on the fusion between business management and your specific creative discipline. So some of the drafts that I read were totally outside of these areas of practice, and that you're in a business school for the creative industries, it needs to be something that focuses around that. So be sure to follow the plan and the sessions that you've been given on this. There were lots that deviated from the recommended layout, and this will result in a fail if you keep on doing what you want to do rather than what you've been tasked to do. So now we're going to move on to the feedback from the specific areas of the proposal. So we'll look at the title section first. So the title's a really important part of establishing the research. Although these can of course be working titles at the moment, it's still important to be clear on this. So a working title is something that can just kind of gently frame your overall research, but isn't a specific title yet. But by giving yourself a working title, you can kind of work through all of your findings still without kind of having to refine it. But you can come to refine the working title right at the end. So they're a really good guide at this stage to help you refine, and but be mindful that the title needs to be clear and focused by the time you come to submit your proposal. So some of you listed a series of research questions that enabled you to develop your ideas better. At this stage, this could be a good way ahead of submitting the draft or the final submission to ascertain what you want to say. So some people just put like, there was very few people that did it, but I noted the people that did. There was like a list of a series of questions that they might work with that all kind of sat within the same topic. And that was quite a nice way of kind of leaving it wide open and able to sort of adapt to the outcomes of your research. So looking now at the research aim and objective section of the proposal, make sure, we worked quite a lot on this last week, so make sure that this section of the proposal isn't too repetitive. Go back through the PowerPoint class from last week and spend some time working on these. So making sure that you're not just repeating very similar things through each of those points. a lot of the objectives appeared to not reflect the hard work that you did on these in our Stream 2 session, so that wasn't quite developed yet in terms of your objectives. Keep the objectives tight, make sure you're trying to look at 4 rather than more, and remember that your last objective must state what the intended deliverable of the project is. So feedback on the background to the research. Now, this isn't a space for you to give an extensive history into your topic. It's a rationale as to why you are doing what you're doing. So there was quite a lot of drafts that I read that gives a kind of clear, like a deep kind of history in terms of what, what to look at and what they're exploring historically. It's not really about going backwards. A tiny bit of historical content is okay, but really you're looking forwards. So it's about trying to sort of look forwards, see and question why you're doing what you're doing. If you're using data and statistics, make sure that these are well referenced. Where are they from? Who produced this data and how are you using it? It might be that you're giving a rationale to this body of work based on a series of data that you've taken from a company who's failing, for example, and you're proposing new ways of kind of generating business for this company. If you do that, remember that the data and statistics that you take still need to be referenced. They can't just be your assumptions of the data. They need to be solid data taken from another source and referenced correctly. Looking at the thematic literature review section of the proposal, overall with your group, those that submitted a literature review, I was impressed with what you have achieved so far. They seem to be quite kind of in-depth. There weren't many that had attempted this to any degree, however, and lots of literature reviews were not there or had not been attempted. Now, this is concerning when it forms this backbone of your research. So this should be the most heavily weighted section of the proposal at 1,500 words, with all of the other components being just a few hundred words each. So, 1,200 words, the literature review. So that needs to form the main bulk of your research or proposal. Remember that you can't write about your research in an informed way if you do not know what has been written about it before. It's all based off your previous knowledge and your previous research. When we look at your methodology section of the proposal, many of you used this space to explain what a methodology was, rather than explaining how you would undertake your research. So what we don't want to see through a methodology is a definition of all the different types of methodologies and what they are. The point of the methodology is for you to explain to us how you intend to undertake your project. So it's not about what the different research methods are, it's about how you intend to undertake your own research for the project. So use the research onion offered through the teaching on this unit to frame your hows and identify potential gaps that you might need to fill before undertaking the final body of research. A key part of the methodology is to discuss your approach from both a theoretical, so what you would like to do, and a practical, what practically you're able to do, perspective. We'll look at methodologies in more detail today. The project limitation and timeline section of the proposal. So remember not to reflect back on this. Think about the project moving forward rather than reflecting back on your PRQ timelines. What do you need to do now and how do you need to do it? So think about moving forward. Do link the discussion to a detailed project timeline or plan and include that in your appendices. And make sure that you discuss the link to the completed risk assessment that your supervisor has signed off, and ensure you include a clear link between the main body text and the relevant appendix. So looking at the research ethics section of the proposal, many had not yet provided this, which is understandable for this stage of drafting. However, it does need consideration soon. Are there any ethical implications to your research that need to be filled in on the form in Janja's announcement on Monday the 24th? And you can find it there in the announcement section. Nick Hillman did a session on the 26th of April, which will help you with this section of the proposal. And as with the limitations and timeline, make sure you link your research ethics to the completed UCA ethical approval form, include it in the appendices, ensuring you include a clear link between the main body of text and the relevant appendix. So that means making sure that where you're referring to the research ethics form in the text, you then put afterwards in brackets that see appendix 1 or 2 or 3, whichever one it sits within, so we know it's directly relating to that. So there's two different things that can help you there: Janja's announcement on Monday the 24th and Nick Hillman's talk session on the 26th of April. So looking again at references and word count for the sections of the proposal, please make sure that you check your draft submissions via Turnitin for your referencing. Some submissions, or lots of submissions, needed much more work on their similarity reports. So be careful of copying and pasting information, and make sure you're referencing all the things that are being picked up as highlighted in the similarity report. Most importantly here, make sure that you follow the structural word count. There were some drafts that were well over what they should have been, even for a draft stage. This is not acceptable academic practice, so make sure that you're meeting the word count. Those were like 4,000 words long, and that's just well over what we've asked you to do. So now we will move on to continue working on the sections of the proposal. As ever with these sessions, I'll allow 10 minutes at the end for you to ask any questions that you might have, but we're only going to allow those 10 minutes, okay? So last week we ended on looking at the thematic literature review, which is approximately 1,200 words, looking at the instructions that were in the handbook. So when we're looking at developing that further, you want to think about what should be in the literature review. So you're developing your lists from last week into paragraphs. So each paragraph is made of sentences that you have written, which then summarise academic theories that you know. These relate to the idea, which is the title of that paragraph. So what's the title of the paragraph? Sentences that you've written yourself, which summarise different academic theories that you know around that theme of the paragraph. It's good to have probably 4 paragraphs in your literature review. Each one will be about a different theme, and try not to put the same academic theory in 2 different paragraphs. So don't repeat your academic theories, try and move on, make it progressive. So when you're constructing the sentences for the literature review, the sentence you can put, to write the sentence you could put the academic theorist's name in the sentence and then focus the meaning on whose idea it is, or you can leave out the academic theorist's name in the sentence and focus just on the meaning of the idea itself. You can mix these different ways of writing through the literature review. So let's move on to the methodology, because we've got kind of 25 minutes left before we open up the session to questions at the end. Your methodology explains how you will undertake your research. Your methodology relates to the PRQ research project design and the research onion that you were given. Your research methodology relates to the research aim and objectives, so have your aim and objectives ready with this, because you can directly link the two through while you're working on this. To discuss your choice of methodological approach from both a theoretical, what you would like to do, and a practical perspective, what you are able to do. So this is the research onion. The data collection and data analysis being at the core, and then looking at the layers that sit above that, peeling them away like an onion. So these questions will help you to write your methodology. Also, make sure you're looking at Nick Hillman's April the 26th workshop on writing your methodology. Okay, so in the PRQ, you were asked to evidence practical knowledge. How will you develop your practical knowledge to better understand your chosen business problem or opportunity, including, as appropriate, your market, industry, regions, customers and competitors? So practical knowledge is necessary to balance the secondary knowledge. It's really important to have that, to be able to balance your secondary information. So we'll spend a few minutes working on this top section here. So these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions in that top block, and I'll give you a few minutes to do this. So look back at the aim and objectives you have already written. What kinds of data would be useful for you to know about accurately so that you can understand the problem or opportunity better and reach the objectives? What data do you need to help you to unpack your objectives? Be realistic about what data you can access in the next couple of months, so not thinking too much about doing extensive kind of questionnaires with people, thinking about what's there and how you can use this in the next couple of months to create your final piece. Think about the geographical area that the problem or opportunity is going on in, and also think about the consumers affected by the problem or opportunity and the competitor brands, organisations or agencies. So thinking about all of those things, what do you need to practically do to find this data? Okay, so I'll just give you a few minutes now to work through that, and then we'll go on to 5B underneath.
Luis, কথা বলো তো। ওইটা দেখা গেল চেক করা গেল। ওই যে আমরা ইয়ে করছি না।
Okay, so now we'll move on to 5B, which looks at the theoretical knowledge. So in your PRQ, you were asked, how will you develop your theoretical knowledge on your chosen business problem or opportunity? So hopefully you're aware that at master's level, it's essential to have the ability to know how to find, understand and use reference theories. This is your secondary research. So this question is asking you, how will you become more knowledgeable on theories that are relevant for your chosen business problem or opportunity? Discuss your choice of methodological approach from a theoretical perspective. Okay, so how will you become more knowledgeable on these theories and look at it from a methodological approach? Okay, so just spend a few more minutes doing that or thinking about how you can link those things. Okay, so looking at the research onion itself, choose types of research from the diagram that match your objectives that you have previously written. So try and link it round to the diagram that you can see here, thinking about your objectives and linking it to the research onion. Okay, so moving on, we're going to look at your project limitations and timeline. So this is quite a short section of the word count, 150 words. So it needs to be quite tight. Your project, so this is taken from the brief, your project limitations and timelines relate to the PRQ research project constraints and the PRQ timeline. Discuss your project limitations and timeline or plan that supports your research design plan. Link the discussion to a detailed project timeline plan included in your appendices, and also discuss a link to the completed risk assessment that your supervisor has signed off. Ensure that you include a clear link between the main body text and the relevant appendix. So in the PRQ, the questions, this is how you can develop it. So the question states, what might restrict your opportunity or possibility to develop your research project? Be realistic. So this project is asking you to develop your research project yourself independently and work regularly on it, for example, every day, to develop good time management skills. So that's what your proposal is asking you to do from your PRQ. To help you write the project limitations, think of some likely situations, results or barriers that might mean that you can't develop like this. Discuss your project limitations. So the next section is asking, we'll spend some time working on all four of these points after I've gone through them all. So what specific problems do you anticipate? Usually when students choose their own subject for a project, there can be some difficulties with completing the project. So are there any specific things that could happen when you're researching or when you're going through your thinking process that mean your work is not as good as it could be? So you can discuss how these connect to your objectives earlier in your planning. What is your plan B in case these specific problems? So usually when difficulties arise, there can be a different way forward to you so that you can continue working. If these situations happen, what can you change about finding information or using the information so that you can carry on with the project to reach your objective? And finally, what steps do you plan to undertake? Is it logical, and when? Be precise and realistic. So this question is asking about how you're going to organise the tasks you need to in the time that you have. To help write your timeline, you need to think about what task you must do first to start the project logically. Then you need to consider what you will do next. So think about each task in order to reach the objectives you wrote earlier. So link this discussion to a detailed project timeline and plan included in your appendices. So those questions on the right hand side of the screen will help you to start formulating your limitations and timeline and thinking about them. So what you need to be very careful that you're doing is linking the discussions to a detailed, because you're quite limited on the word count here, so making sure that you link these 150 word discussions in your proposal to a detailed timeline or plan that you include in your appendices. And according to the brief here, that should be Appendix A is your project timeline. And that's the detail that we want to see through that. Okay, so that's quite a lot to go through. We'll just spend 5 minutes or so looking at that and planning it and thinking how you might start to construct that. Okay, looking at your research ethics, again, this is quite a tight, short section, but again, you need to link it to your appendices at the back. So this is where you discuss your understanding of ethical considerations associated with your project and link to a completed UCA ethical approval form, which you then include as Appendix C in your appendices. Make sure that you indicate the clear link between the main body text and the relevant appendix. So making sure when you write your research ethics section of 150 words, you're directly linking this back to Appendix C, which is your UCA ethical approval form, and that the two link together. So looking at the final section then of your appendices and your references. So making sure that references are correct and in the right UCA Harvard referencing system. So you can follow this through the link here, also on the UCA website and the library pages. Learning development tutors and liaison librarians are there to offer any support and help that you might need with checking that, as well as your similarity report that you can see with anything in there that notes that you've text matched. Remember that your references are not included in your overall word count, and nor are your appendices. So appendices are the whole group of appendix together. So they make up a series of appendix. So your appendices should include Appendix A, which is your project timeline. So that directly links to project limitations and timeline section. Appendix B, which is your research project risk assessment. Appendix C, which is your UCA ethical approval form, so that directly links to the research ethics. And D, your supervisor logs. These need to be 3 because you have attended 3 Stream 2 Zooms. So any other appendix that you feel that you may need to include can come into that as well. Are there any questions at this stage? I can see something coming up in the chat box. So I'll just read them first. I'll just read them out first. The documents we were asked to upload together for our proposals, would it be in PDF form? Yeah, you can upload it into PDF, that's fine. Nancy. Shamima has asked, there was mention about a form to add to our appendix and to have to fill out. That is research risk assessment form. My question is, which place should I mention that in my form? Because I haven't visited anywhere as my research is based on secondary. How do I do that? Please explain. So your research risk assessment form, that needs to, I think you should probably send Janya a message about that if it's based on secondary research. I don't think it applies. My advice would be, I don't think it applies if you haven't got any risks, but it might be worth filling it out anyway, Shamima, and just saying, you know, that it's based on secondary research so that you don't perceive any perceived risks within this. Appendix D, how Appendix D is not clear. Appendix D is not clear. There's quite a number of questions about that. That surprises me that Appendix D is not clear, because Pooja and Tanjinaj, it should be clear because we go through this every single week. Appendix D is your supervision logs. That's your record of supervision. So you need 3 of them because you've attended 3 sessions. They should have been uploaded each of the 3 weeks that you've been here. Okay, so that's your supervision logs, your records of supervision. I don't need to sign them off because you're in stream 2. They're just something that you work on, but we will be assessing as part of your proposal. Is there a session next week? Charles, no, there's no more sessions now until the end of May, but you will, well, there isn't any sessions with me, but you will be having data analysis sessions in between, so it's really important that you check my UCA announcements for your times and places for your data analysis. There's still lots of questions about Appendix D. Appendix A, what do we have to do? Appendix A is, that's what we've been through in the session this morning, is your project timeline. Navpreet, in these sections. So here we went through, this is your project timeline section. So I'd advise you to revisit this PowerPoint when I send it out to you, and you can have a look through that in your own time. That's what you should be working on when we have the sort of 5 minutes time to work on it. Tamana, we need to add 3 to the proposal. Yes, they come as part of your appendix with the other appendix. The 3 records of supervision. Any other questions at all? I mean, you can submit it, but we'll be documenting when you've submitted them, so it's really important that you submit them within that 48 hours after the session. Tamana, as a Word file, you can just condense everything together combine everything together into a PDF if you want, with your proposal and all your appendices together. Just make it clear that which your appendices are, so Appendix A, Appendix B, Appendix C, Appendix D afterwards. Any more questions?
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
I'm telling you, we have already submitted our 2 record of supervision, and last one is left. So when after uploading 3 record of supervision, we need to attach it as our proposal
Yes.
again.
Yeah. So you attach all 3 then, once you've uploaded it, you attach all 3 to your proposal when you submit next week. But
Okay, then
upload it to
right?
the record of supervision area first, and then
Yeah.
attach it to your proposal, because the hand-in date's Tuesday morning, so that's sort of after that. Sorry, that's before the latest of submitting your supervision record. So just
So
upload the
altogether
right.
as this PDF file and then upload it.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I'll send the slides out after this session, but the audio of the slides probably won't come out until, I don't know when. It took a few days last time for that to be generated, and I forwarded all of them to you at the beginning of the week, so it might be next week before the audio comes out, but the slides will be here. Do we write up on the appendix section, or is it only the documents associated to it we should upload? You have to write on them. They have to be filled out, yeah. In the literature review session, are we listening out all the academic sources connected to our work in our proposal? No, the literature review is the chosen academic sources, the main themes, the main theories. Not all of them though, just the main things. So we said in that session, you're breaking down into kind of 4 themes, and within each of those 4 themes, maybe 5 theorists as a minimum. Ogechi, when are we getting the corrected draft? You aren't, as we've been through week after week. Today was the feedback you had on your draft. It's collective feedback, not individual feedback. So that was it today. Any more questions? Okay, well, we'll end the session there. So thanks everybody, best of luck. We're submitting next week, Tuesday, before 11 a.m. I'll send out an email with the slides with the deadlines on. Yeah, and look forward to seeing you after you've submitted. Take care everyone, bye.